Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business B.E.A.R podcast. It's your host, Connor Norman here, your business development specialist with Garrett County Business Development. We hope you guys are excited and ready for another episode here. I have got an incredible individual that's going to talk to us all about leadership and so much more today. We've got Jeanette Fitzwater from JR Fitzwater Associates. She's going to speak here in just a few minutes. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about the podcast. Now, if you're listening in for the first time, the Business B.E.A.R podcast actually stands for something. It's an acronym: Business, Expansion, Assistance, and Retention. It's not just our fuzzy, furry friends over in the woods, for which Garrett County is very popular, but it actually stands for something, and it communicates what we're trying to achieve here with this show. That is talking to our local economic development movers and shakers and you, our local business owners. If you're looking to get on the show, you give me a call at 301-334-7281 or email me at cnorman@garrettcountymd.gov. Again, that's 301-334-7281 or email me at cnorman@garrettcountymd.gov. Alrighty, folks, remember, any opinions shared by the host or their guests are their own and do not reflect that of Garrett County Government or Garrett County Business Development. All right, now that we got the house cleaning out of the way, let's get into the show. All right, Jeanette, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing terrific, Connor. Thank you.
Well, you couldn't ask for a better day for a podcast, and I think we've got a lot of important stuff to talk about and exciting stuff to talk about. You are offering an incredible resource right here in our backyard, and we're going to dig in and talk all about that. For those that are listening, you may know her from the world of furniture, you may know her from the world of banking, but today we're going to talk about the world of leadership and the awesome programs that she has available through her consulting company. Jeanette, before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'd love to. Thank you, Connor. Well, I consider myself a Garrett County girl.
Okay.
I grew up here, and after I finished college, I came back, worked for First United for 30 years. I thought I'd be there for a little while. Something happened. I stayed. It was
nice.
Wonderful. And because of the opportunities there, I had a lot of chances to learn about leadership and to grow, and was actually an executive officer when I retired early. So while I was at First United is when I really started to learn about some of these solutions and opportunities for leadership that you could use. So we've used it there. We still continue to use it for First United, incidentally. And then we've been able to use it out in the public with a variety of different businesses and organizations. And it's really just been so very gratifying. And it's really all about growing a team, growing individuals from really before they're even hired. We have some solutions for that, through to watching them develop, and then as they grow into leadership. And we even do some executive coaching and a variety of things, but it's growing people and leaders within an organization to be stronger and to support their strategic vision.
That's incredible. And I know we're going to dig into this a little more because I think a lot of our businesses around here are maybe looking for this next step, as they're growing their next generation of leaders and even strengthening the ones they have. You're going to be an integral resource, I think, that some local businesses can really tap into. But let's talk about your time at First United Bank. You're coming into Garrett County. You think, okay, maybe banking is a temporary thing, but you stick around for 30 years. Talk about your leadership growth in that arena and what kind of interested you into taking this on.
Well, I was very fortunate. I came out with a business degree, and some people may remember Ben Ritter, but he hired me as a marketing assistant.
Okay.
I grew up through that marketing area. And when we went through the transition of leadership, when Bill Grant came in, we did a little bit of reorganization, and Bill was aware that I actually had an HR degree and brought me in under that umbrella.
Okay.
And then later on, I had the opportunity to kind of merge both and gain some opportunities there, and it put me on the executive level and so on. But I also had the opportunity to try some different things because a great leadership team gave me opportunity and really the right size that you could take on those kinds of things. So, I've led sales forces before. At one point, we had the insurance division. I was over that. Wow. So things that you wouldn't think as an HR director, so to speak, but gave me a lot of great different kinds of experiences. And by sitting among that executive group, the strategic planning and the decisions that have to be made as you grow a little bit larger. So it's just a wealth of opportunity. What happened with me is at one point, I had something come across my desk talking about a certification for corporate coaching, a registered corporate coach program. Now, I had been doing coaching for years, but really not well trained in it. So I took that class, and it gave me some great tools, but probably the best tool that came out of that was learning about the DISC behavioral model. And we started using it there gradually for different purposes. Originally, we used it for a division for sales, and then we used it within the management classes. And as we were looking at leadership change at First United, all of us boomers were starting to retire, we realized we needed to grow leaders just as many of our colleagues locally are doing that. And we went through some training to help transition managers to more of a true strategic leadership role.
Okay.
So it just kind of blossomed. And then as my time came that I decided to early retire, then I was able to use that. Well, I actually did a little bit before I started retiring, but I've been able to use that with a variety of people, maybe individual coaching, different nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations. And it seems to be working very well for them, and it's certainly very gratifying for me.
Now, do you think HR staff or HR workers end up being more well-rounded? I've talked to a couple of HR folks in the past, and they work so closely with staffing and trainings. They always end up taking some really integral leadership positions.
I think of a forward-thinking organization, it is. And one of the benefits, especially if you're in the learning and development or the training areas, is you're doing that with a variety of different expertise. So you learn a little bit, same thing with marketing, you learn a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Maybe not an expert in any of it, but you learn a little bit of everything, which you can imagine for leadership is very, very helpful if they have the opportunity to really think strategically and really see the big picture. Those skill sets can mean a lot. And as I know you know, Connor, from sitting through some of the leadership classes, as you grow within an organization, your technical expertise is still valuable, but these other skill sets are what's going to really make an impact in your future and your company, because that's what you really need. If it wasn't that case, how do you take somebody that's a CEO of General Motors and move them over to a whole different industry, and they may or may not be successful? You couldn't do that if it was all about just their technical expertise.
You're right. Wow. That's a good way to think about it. Now, let's break down your consulting company as a whole. Tell us a little bit about JR Fitzwater Associates. What leads you to take on this role after retirement?
It drives me. It's exciting. When I hear somebody that's made an impact, or they say this is the difference that was made, that's why I'm doing it. It's extremely gratifying. I really do enjoy the consulting role, because as much as I enjoy being a banker, it's nice to see these attributes applied in a variety of different environments, and that they really do work in different environments, and it stretches me intellectually to be able to learn about the different businesses and the needs that they may in fact have. So, the question becomes, like on a business card, what are you? I don't know what I am. I decided I was a strategic development consultant.
Okay.
Which sounds kind of fancy, but it really is just building employees and people and leaders to be their very best and to be the most successful.
Okay. Excellent. So let's say I'm coming to you for the first time and I'm looking for a kind of an array of your services, or just kind of an explanation of what you can help me achieve. Let's talk about your service offerings.
Sure. I'd be happy to do that. And first of all, of course, what I would want to know is what's going on in your business and what your needs are,
okay,
rather than listing services. But let me just give you a little bit of an overview. Probably the two main solutions that play into what I do. One is PXT Select solution, and that's something that we use. We start with the pre-hire. I would consider it a mid-level selection tool. You could do the little fill in the dot, very quick and dirty, or you can go get a consultant that's going to come in and profile everything and build a huge program. This is in between.
Okay.
This is an online program that they take a profile for about an hour. And what comes out of that is we learn about their thinking style, their cognitive abilities, basically verbal and written. Then we learn about behavioral traits, how assertive, how is their pace, and so on. And then we learn about their individual interests. And what we do is we overlay that with a model that has been established for a similar role. So we see if they are in fact a good fit. They may be a wonderful employee, but it just may not be the right fit.
Gotcha.
So that helps the leader of the organization to make decisions. They don't base it on that solely, of course. They're interviewing, but it also provides them with interview questions and potential gaps that they can explore further. So circle back, they successfully hire somebody, then they can utilize this tool with learning how to coach that employee, here on all those behavioral traits. Here's where they are, here's what you need to do, here's how you can help this employee to do it well, to help onboard them and to grow them. We can run reports between the manager, the hiring manager, and that employee, and how they're going to get along, where the challenges are, and what they can do to be better. We can build team reports, but basically there's about a dozen reports. No one's going to run all of them at once. But as your needs change, you can do that. And even if you, as that employee is looking at other opportunities within the organization, we can overlay his results against a different model and say, hey, how would he or she be over in this area? So it's really a great way to help grow. And then if you're talking about growing employees, the other major solution we use is Everything Disc. And that's not to be used for selection purposes, but it is to be used for growing teams. And what you can do with Everything Disc is, again, it's an assessment. It takes maybe 15 or 20 minutes to take, but it's based on your general behaviors. And the idea being no one style is right, but there's basically 4 behavioral styles. And if I'm working with you, Connor, and I learn what your style is, and you learn what my style is, then I can help you to learn how to adapt to get along better. You don't change who you are because you're great as you are, but it's how do you adapt to meet them. So imagine you take that for workers working together, then managers working with their employees, that same kind of thing. I often use the illustration. I'm a mom of 3 kids. They're adults now. But if I treated each child the same way in the morning, getting them up, I would still be in the mommy circle at the high school, believe me. It's just every person needs a little different approach. So if you think of that as a parent, it's many times the same kind of thing. So how you delegate, how you develop, and so on needs to be a little bit different based on how they receive it, and it will be so much more successful. Then, as I said, as you grow into leadership roles, how do you migrate from a manager to a leader? And then we also even have programs available where you have some leaders in place and they really want to grow from that. So they want to know, what do my direct reports think? What do other community leaders think? What do other audiences, what does my boss think? And then you look at those results and you look for gaps and you coach to opportunities to grow. And if you think about it, that can in fact happen. You could have a gap. You could have a case that it's somebody that's perceived by the boss and the community as amazing. And you query the direct reports and it's not the same. What's going on? So it's not fit for the faint of heart, but it can be very, very helpful. And you would couple that most likely with executive coaching and opportunities. And as we get into that, that can be org changes. It can be a variety of kind of things that come as offshoots with this. There's also a program for productive conflict.
Okay.
And you may think that's an oxymoron, productive and conflict.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. There's good, healthy conflict. And if you learn how to do it in the right way, it can be good for the company. But, we all have it and we think, oh, that's negative. So you can learn approaches with that. And then there's one on being more agile within the workplace too. So I see those as solutions, but they only fit into what the need is of the particular organization. Many people use Everything Disc as a team building, and that's wonderful. And it really grows the team together. But then it also highlights if there's other areas where they might want to work a little harder on.
Yeah, very cool. So let's back up a little bit and talk about, the onboarding portion of your consulting here. So I think it's ever prevalent, that term, you should hire slow, fire fast. So especially in 2024, where we're up against issues, some of the top concerns of our businesses are obviously finding employees or finding the right fit. It seems like there are a lot of positions, there are very few candidates, or finding the right candidates can be very difficult. So it sounds like this is a great method of finding the right person, while it may take a little longer than, and I think it's known, we need people, we need them quickly. It seems like people are just kind of hiring without considering the ramifications of, is this person going to be good for me? So it sounds like that's a great kind of first step to start slowing things down and maybe finding the right person that could fit your organization.
Well, I've often said, when somebody in my past would come to me and say, just give me a warm body, I'll train them, it's never successful. I think hire slow, hire smart is important. Now, the interesting thing is the perception I usually get, Connor, is what you just said. Now, it's going to take a little longer.
Okay.
But if we're in the middle of this, and I keep using you for an example.
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll see if you get hired at the end.
Oh, yes.
If you're coming in, then all I really need to know, we need to build the model or find a model, and I need your name and email address. I send you a link once the manager tells me to.
Okay.
You take the assessments, we immediately get the results.
Oh, nice.
So I'm the manager, will say, you've taken it, I get the immediate results. I can review it pretty quickly once I start to learn how the model works, and that's something as a consultant I can help with. And then there's areas to review and sample questions to consider in the interview. So it assists you with the interview to delve a little further. So how much longer is that? Probably not a whole lot longer. I'm assuming that the manager preps for the interview anyway.
Mm-hmm.
This gives them a tool that makes it even better. And also imagine if many times in hires, you'll have a couple people in an interview.
Yeah.
And human nature, regardless of DEI or any of those kinds of things, just likability. You know, you and I relate because we go to these chamber things. So I like Connor, you know, and in 5 minutes I'm convinced, but somebody else isn't. So then you go through these same questions. Everybody hears the same things. And some of that bias that comes about starts to go away because you kind of force yourself to hear, well, where are they in different areas? So if used well, it can be really very helpful. And I've had clients that say that and are using it more and more. Some use it for development solely, some use it for hiring solely. The best ones use it for both.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something important to know. I mean, there's certainly been those positions where I'll admit heartily in the past that I've gone for where, you know, I knew who owned the company well. I knew the managers well. We clicked, you know, it was like this one's in the bag. And then you find out someone else has been hired over you because they were thinking critically. They chose the right person for the job. And unfortunately, it wasn't me. That's okay. I didn't need to go to Los Angeles to do radio there. It was fine. I was happy here at KHJ.
Exactly.
To your point, I think that's a fantastic way for managers to kind of take that out and think more critically.
Yeah, and it's statistically sound, which is great. So if you've got somebody on your team that really likes data, now suddenly you're taking with what they think is very esoteric, this interviewing process, and at least they have some facts behind it. And you wouldn't solely base the hire on that, but it certainly gives them a good tool, and then certainly a tool to use for onboarding later.
Great. So I think that kind of explains that piece. Let's move a little more towards your DISC element.
Sure.
Now, I can say out there, folks, I've been through Jeanette's DISC program, so I'm going to be extremely biased and say you need to be signing up for this program. It is fantastic. I feel like I grew a lot from a better understanding of myself and breaking down where are my strengths, where are my weaknesses. There was nice little charts and things that explained it, but I'm not going to front load this thing. In fact, I'll probably move that to the end. So that's just a personal for you.
Thank you.
But let's go ahead and break down DISC for someone that doesn't quite understand what that means. It's a great tool in the business world, especially for developing your team. But let's hear from the expert. Can you kind of break down what DISC is and maybe go over a little bit what the DISC stands for?
Certainly. Actually, this is a well-founded model. It's, if you can believe it actually started like in the late 20s. And of course, has been built and is much stronger than it was at that point.
Okay.
But it's been around for a long time. Many of these behavioral models, and a lot of people call them personality style models, or what they call kind of a 4-quadrant. You fall within 4 different areas. And DISC is much the same. Mm-hmm. And if you visualize a circle, and we sometimes refer to it as a map even, with 4 different quadrants. On the top, you have a D, which are people that tend to be very dominant. You know where they stand. They want it fast. They want it that way. They're outspoken.
Okay.
Then you have the I on the upper right-hand side, which is influence. And these are your outgoing people. They get excited. They're the cheerleaders. They're enthusiastic. They may sometimes lose focus because they're excited about the project, but that's what they bring to the table. And then if you go down from the I, you have S, which is steadiness. These are the people that keep us running. They're there every day. They want everybody to get along well. They know all the process. They many times have the real knowledge base of the company.
Okay.
And then to the left is the C, the conscientiousness. These are the people that know the details. Don't try to win me over with a lot of fluff. Give me the data. Is there another report that I could look at to make sure? But they're going to make sure it's right the first time. And in a perfect organization, you have some level of mix of all four. And no, it's not right to have an I for this role and a D for this role. You can be successful with any of those styles. The key to it, though, is learning how to adapt to other styles. And the first is typically within your colleagues, but as I said, it can be used for building relationships with customers, relationships with your managers, outside community people, and so on. The concept works very well. So you start with, you learn about yourself, and that's usually a couple chuckles, and you're going, okay, I guess that's me.
Yeah.
And then, you recall that. And then you start to learn about others that you work with so you can recognize what they're like. And I often say, if you stop there, it's been a fun day. But the value comes in the next step with what can I do to adapt, to get along better. Now, I'd love to say, Connor, if you just change, we could do terrific, but I can't control that. I can control myself. And it's amazing how just adapting your style. Perfect example is if I were working with you in sales, and you're one of these really detailed people, or in a car dealership, you come in, you've got your consumer report, you were on it.
Yeah.
And all I want to do is talk to you about the color of the car and the makeup mirror. I'm going to lose you pretty quickly. So it's understanding your client and your customer or your coworker.
Gotcha.
And getting them where they are as opposed to necessarily where we are.
Gotcha. So that's pretty interesting. Now, would you say that, okay, so you tend to fall into one category. You kind of have a mix of all of them, but favor one. Are there sometimes individuals that fall into maybe one or two, or maybe multiple categories?
Yeah, most people are some kind of a blend.
Okay.
So it could be a DI or an IS. You typically aren't the opposite extremes, a blend of that. But, some people do have more blend, and then they're a little more difficult to read because I have a bunch of different styles, but it also makes them very adaptable. So most people are not just one solid style.
Okay.
They have some level of mix. But you'll be amazed. What I like about this, and I often laugh and say, I'm not Dr. Fitzwater. I'm not a psychologist on this, but there are people behind that are, trust me. But very quickly, you start to recognize these styles. Within, if they go through a facilitation that we do, within about an hour or so, you're really starting to get good at recognizing the styles and understanding it. And then it's fine-tuning. You get excited and you start to learn what to do with it. But it's not such a difficult concept.
No, I wouldn't say at all. Having been through the class, I'm obviously up. I was up an I probably as far as you could go. Not towards the center. I was like right on the edge, towards the middle. I guess if you were trying to put it perfectly, it was a little more towards the D, but definitely, like I said, an I. However, it gave me kind of an understanding of how to identify some of the other people that might sit in other categories. And you're right, it really helps change how I think about things and how I approach someone, knowing where their strengths and weaknesses are. It's why this podcast exists. I love doing stuff like this and being out there and excited about stuff and tackling the objective with enthusiasm. And sometimes, I need balance, Stephen. And it's great that I have a team that falls into the other categories that says, all right, now, hold up. Yeah. Do we have the resources we need? Do we have this and that and this? That helps me a lot. And even though I've got coworkers that haven't been through that, I kind of understand where they lie. And I know to go to them and ask them for wisdom or guidance when I'm trying to think something through. So I think that's been a really valuable piece to it. Do you think you get a lot of people that might say that?
Absolutely. And I have enough eye in me that I can appreciate that too. And I often tell the story about, when I was working, there was a gentleman I worked with very closely. And, and the eye is talking. If they're not getting the response, they start to invade physical space or maybe get a little louder. What did you miss? Well, this person was a C. And that just shuts a C down immediately. The conscientiousness guy. This is, I hope this goes away soon. That's kind of how they're looking at it. So the way you approach that C needs to be much different. It might be a quick email. Would you have some time around 2:00 that we could talk about this, that, or the other? So it's very clear. They can think about it. They don't want to be caught off the cuff. And it can be so much more effective. But taking the approach that I might take, which is stop by their office and just go at it, was not successful. So you're right. I mean, it's how you approach it. But boy, if you can build a good relationship between those complementary styles, it's a dynamic duo. But also through this module, there's different reporting things. We could run a comparison report as to how two people can get along better. We can look at the team as a whole and see what the dynamics are. So it's kind of an all-inclusive kind of process of how you get there in a circle way, because it just keeps changing and you keep using it.
Nice. So are there different aspects to this training? Let's say I've gone through and I think I'm developing well with my team. Can I take it further to the next level? Can I drill down on maybe like strengthening myself personally as a leader, or taking on like a sales initiative, or applying this to not just inwardly but outwardly?
Yeah, I think certainly DISC itself, as I said, can be used in a lot of different capabilities.
Okay.
So let's say in different organizations where they take through all employees, and we do have a couple of those.
Okay.
Somebody may have come in initially and gone through workplace. Then they go into a sales role and they take the sales role. Then if they go into management, they take the management and maybe a whole coaching mentoring class with it. Then as they're growing into leadership, they go through work of leaders. In between, they have a few conflict issues. They take productive conflict. They want the workforce to be a little more agile. They take agile. When I first went through this, I had this paradigm in my mind that once somebody had done DISC, they would have no interest or value in taking other modules. And I was proven wrong. And in fact, I know people that have taken several, almost all of these, and they get a new perspective each time. So as it's adapted in different ways, it's amazing how you can still learn. Now with that, I would say, how do you grow personally is where we can come in and do some coaching and work with individuals of a team that a company wants to invest in, an up-and-coming leader and so on. And that can make good sense. Somebody that's maybe going to take over a key leadership role in a year or two, and they really want them to grow before they get into that. So there are these one-off opportunities, there's strategic planning and things that can come as a result of this too.
Awesome.
We've had open enrollment classes with them, and they've also helped with some of the contract training with some of these organizations. And it's just been an absolute wonderful partnership, and we've even got some classes coming up soon.
Awesome. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that in September, which is, I think, a good time in Garrett County because really the season's just starting to change.
Absolutely.
So we have 2 open enrollment classes. And when I say open enrollment, it's essentially like any college class. But an organization could send 1, 2, 3 people if they want to without committing to a full training necessarily initially. So the first is DISC Workplace, which is for all employees and can be a great team building opportunity. That is September 10th from 9 to 1. And then the second is for building those customer relationships. It's called Everything DISC Sales, but it's really about building relationships. It's consultative selling. It's not about pushing product or whatever.
Okay.
So it's building those relationships. That's September 12th, 2 days later.
Okay.
And that's an all-day program, 9 to 4. Workplace is more of a half day. Sales is a little bit more intense. So it's a full day. So those are wonderful opportunities. We're getting some pretty good traction, and we may add some other sessions if there's enough interest in that. But many times people will start with sending a few people to the open enrollment, learn about it, and then maybe it starts to spread within an organization. And as I said, I have a couple different groups that at different times have had all employees or all new employees to take DISC and use it. And then also on the PXT end, they do the same thing.
Excellent. Well, and I know that, getting the word out there is essential. This is going to, of course, drop before those dates. So a lot of people will be informed, but having that nice kind of intro or tee up where they can hear this program and say, hey, wow, I'm hearing some, not just examples of how this is going to work for my team, but some, now like with Andrew, some great testimonials out there from local organizations that say, hey, this is valuable. This works in my company. This has helped grow our organization. And now you have availability in classes right here in the community that you don't have to travel out to get. So
it's quick and easy. They do a terrific job. If somebody is interested, the way to find out more is to talk to Caitlin Claudfeldy at Garrett College. And she's at 387-3770 or Caitlin, Kaitlyn, Glotfelty, Glotfelty, at garrettcollege.edu.
Awesome. Can we get that one more time?
Absolutely. Her phone number, 301-387-3770. And then her email address at Garrett College is Caitlin, Kaitlyn .Glotfelty, the Garrett County name, Glotfelty, at garrettcollege.edu.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jeanette. Speaking of this program, I mean, do you think this is great, not just for those in the workplace, but I know many of our employers now work with remote employees. Do you think this is a good format that works for people that are working out of their homes or that sort of environment?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And if you think about it, you're losing the visual at remote. Now, I'm a big believer in remote work, so that's not a negative, but it's just a little harder. You can't read that, the body language. But absolutely, and we've used this a lot post-pandemic as this has become more of a thing. And some of these classes can be structured, in fact, online. That's what we do a lot with First United, quite frankly, is we do a lot of that. And we can still have breakout groups created and things online. But it really becomes perhaps even more important because it is a little tougher to have the team building and to understand each other at a distance. But one of my favorite stories that I love to share is before I retired from the bank, Carissa Rodehaver asked me to go ahead and take DISC through the whole company. We had different pockets up till then.
Okay.
And when we had the customer care center, these are the people that you call on the phone, the 888 My Bank phone number. The leader at that time, Candy McNair, said, "Hey, Jeanette, let's do this way." I had videos where you would watch and say, "Hey, what style do you think these people are?" She said, "Let's turn our backs so we can't see the video." So all they had was the audio. And it was amazing how they could pick up on the different styles.
Wow.
So it can be done with just a little bit of training. And of course, they're very attuned to it. But that really taught me a lot. Again, the leader learns.
Yeah.
This really does work in that kind of environment. And that was before we all ever even got into the remote work lifestyle.
The productive conflict resolution. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. It's a half-day session. Again, it's another profile-based.
Okay.
But the idea is that most people think of conflict as negative, including myself. But it doesn't have to be. And honestly, to get to the best solutions, you need to have a little bit of conflict. And it goes through this model, and it's this idea of, we're talking, and at some point you say something that just triggers something in me.
Okay.
And now I'm hearing all these things in my mind of what you're really thinking and what you're doing. And that's when it all goes awry. And you see a variety of videos like that. We kind of talk about what happened here. And then the idea is you step back and you kind of refer to this as, I refer to this as the T method, TEA. Is it true and valid what's going on? Am I really thinking something that is really true or valid, or am I kind of making this up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if it is, E, is it exaggerated? Maybe it is, but am I hearing it? Really, is it that much of a big deal? And the A, is there another way to look at it? Could it have been that you'd had a bad day? Maybe you just got out of a meeting with the boss. What could have happened? And then it calms you down, and then you can really think about the situation and have a more productive response to it. Because we all know if that stuff's going on in our head, then all those bad demons come out in us, and we say things we don't want to say, and bad things happen. And it's not necessary. If we can think that through and really understand the person better, and DISC underlies that, but really start to understand what's going on, calm the situation, then we can use that conflict very effectively. And also, if we recognize that certain styles are going to naturally react in conflict differently, when we see that reaction, we can go, oh, maybe that's why that happened.
Wow. I wish I could get this for the folks that put political commentary in our comments.
I'm sorry, that's not the facilitation I want you to do, Connor. But you're right.
That is incredible, though. In like I said, I love these podcasts. Every time I interview someone, I learn something new, and I think that even for me, I find something valuable in that, and I think I'm going to seek you out to talk a little bit more about that whole program, because a lot of the times, you're right. We hear information we don't want to hear, or something that, of course, upsets us, and then we just make assumptions about a person that aren't true. because we haven't asked them, we haven't ascertained that that's the way they feel, and it seems like we exaggerate or don't find another way of looking at or changing our perspective to look at something. So very cool. It sounds like that's a great conflict tool that maybe many businesses could take advantage of so that they're not unnecessarily facing issues within their workplace, losing talent or failing to grow talent because of what sounds at the end of the day like a misunderstanding that could have been worked out if they had just used this method to figure that out.
In which you'll find, Connor, as you get to know me a little better, I kind of refer to myself as I'm a return on assets girl, I want to see a result. And I think there are dollars and cents results in addition to the feel good as to what you're talking about in terms of retention and attraction, productivity. There really is a bottom line result by working with this and just making people more comfortable and much more enjoyable workplace and relationships. But it will pay off. It's an investment in your team and in your company.
Well, it's a fantastic, to akin it to like a vehicle. It's a tune-up. If everything's working in concert, you're driving to your location, you're getting to your location, there's no issue. Now, if there's a certain part that's breaking down or you fail to tune up the machine once in a while, it's going to break down. And then you're not going to be as efficient. You're not getting where you need to go.
The other thing with this that's nice is once you learn the disc styles, and everybody as a group has learned it, then if I say to you, Connor, your eye is really coming out today, and we both kind of laugh, but you get the message. So that once everybody learns this language of the business, that you can address things that could be a little more difficult to say by utilizing some of that because everybody's envisioning the same thing.
Very cool. Wow. So I think we've got a nice kind of we've got 3 different fantastic resources that you can provide a local company or just an individual that's learning to grow themselves or many teams and organizations out there that may want to grow, personally or as a group. So you have from the very beginning, onboarding to developing the team and growing as individuals. And then you have conflict resolution. So it seems like it's fully encompassing of every aspect that a leader might face.
Yeah, and if you add in that selection, the assistance with selection too, to get the right person on board before they onboard, you're now up to 4.
There we go. Excellent. So, Jeanette, how would somebody get a hold of you if they were looking to maybe try out some of these programs or even learn more?
Sure. They could certainly reach out to me via email if they'd like.
Okay.
It's Jeanette, JeAnnette, at JR Fitzwater, FITZWATER.com. If you want to check out the website, it's jrfitzwater.com. Or simply give me a call, 301-616-8583. And I'd love to chat.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge today. Thanks so much for sharing your awesome programs. I know that I'm going to come and take advantage of them. I have been through that DISC program. Just reiterate what we talked about earlier. I thought it was nothing but valuable. I learned a lot about myself and the team. We did it during our Leadership Garrett program, which that's a plug. Anyone that's interested in that program should. Jeanette was a huge and integral piece of that. I think that helped us develop as we were a close team before. I think we were even closer afterwards. So that's a testament to how great this program is. I encourage everyone to take advantage of it. So at the end of every program, I open up the mic to all of my guests where you can either reiterate kind of what we talked about or plug upcoming events, plug upcoming classes. Sounds like you got a few there. Tell the people what you want them to know.
Well, I want them to know that I'm open and look forward to working with it. I'm here because I find it very gratifying. It really makes me feel like I'm making a difference, and how great is that? I mean, it's just wonderful. I bring a unique environment in that many times people that do these things are coming from an educational environment, which is very valuable. I'm not saying that, but I bring in perhaps a little different perspective than some of my colleagues because much of what I've learned and how I integrate it is workforce experience and involvement in the community. So it's a little different angle with that, but I'm certainly there to help customize and to work with leaders. And as I said many times, it's just conversations, and then we find out we need to do a little bit of development. We need to do a little coaching. We need help with selection. I just need to talk through these strategic ideas. I want a strategic planning retreat. Those are all things that can evolve, but they often start with, like you said, as simple as a class. And this market area, as we just said, those classes that are at Garrett College, September 10th and 12th, are great opportunities to kind of stick your toe in the water, see what it's about, and see how that might work for your organization. And then the real powerful training, I think, is when you really can bring it into a particular team, because then you're really speaking and talking about what's going on in their environment. And that can be done very easily, and it can be done coordinating through the college.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing, Jeanette. I think, again, just to reiterate, we have learned a lot, and I think we've got something very valuable here for all of our listeners today. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming in. Again, it's Jeanette Fitzwater with JR Fitzwater Associates. If you want to learn more, go to www.jrfitzwater.com. You can email her at jeanette@jrfitzwater.com or hit her up on her phone, 301-616-8583. Thank you all for listening to the program today. Remember, if you want to learn more, including some great resources we have in our area like Jeanette, follow us at Garrett County Business Development on our Facebook page. We have a LinkedIn, we have a Twitter, an X, whatever Elon's calling it these days, and we do have an Instagram. So please check us out and be following us for the latest in your business community, including when more episodes of the Business B.E.A.R podcast drop on your favorite podcast listening space. So thanks again for listening. I'm Connor Norman, and we'll see you all on the other side.